In today's lesson, I'm going to talk about the factors affecting urban land use patterns. Last lesson, we looked at land use patterns and the characteristics, and now we're going to look at the reasons why we might get certain land uses in certain areas and not in other areas. So this is the concentric zone model we looked at. It's a very generic look at what a city or an urban area might look like. And we can see and think about the fact that in these different zones, the land use can often be dominated by completely different land use. So in the CBD, you might remember that it's mainly commercial and retail, but in the inner city, it's poorer residential and older factories. And as we move further out, the residential gets newer and larger, and then we get this kind of complex rural urban fringe where it's so in demand, it's got so many different land uses wanting to kind of use it, where we've got retail, business parks, science parks, and then really lavish, large residential. So there are obviously reasons why they have completely different land uses in different parts of the city. And we're going to look at the kind of reasons why they are so segregated, so separate. So one of the major reasons why you often get completely separate land uses is because of land value. That means the cost of the land. And the cost of the land is often because the basic principle of economics is that you will try and sell for the highest price, and so you'll try and sell a land for the highest value, and so to get that there will be a highest bidder. So the highest bidder will be able to get the land of the highest value. So to be able to bid for a really expensive piece of land, you need to basically realise that you're going to be able to use it well. So the person that is going to bid the most will know that they can make best use of that particular area. So you often find in the highest land value, you're seeing similar functions because they can all afford that similar land value because they all know that they can use it in the best way. And what I mean by use it in the best way, I'm going to give an example to show you what I mean. So we remember that the CBD is an area that has the greatest access in the city. So because it has the greatest access, that means you can get lots of people in there, and that means if you can get lots of people, then there's opportunities for economic activity. And because there's lots of people in there, we can argue that retailers and commercial companies realise that if they can put their businesses there, then they can make a lot of profits. So they are willing to bid a lot for that land because they know that if they bid, say, a couple of £1 million, that they will be able to make even more millions from the profits of all those people that go there. So therefore, that land becomes very highly valued because those companies and those land uses are willing to bid a lot of money to get that really sought after area. So on a map, I've got a cross section here of a city where we've got the suburbs on the edges and we've got the city centre, and you can see just the rural area and fringe shown by the out of town shopping mall. And we can see that the peak value is actually in that city centre. That's because access is the best, and therefore those retail and commercial organisations are willing to pay a lot of money to be there because they know they can make lots of profits. What's interesting from this is that you actually have a second land value sometimes on the outer rural urban fringe. That's because, again, this is a place that is becoming really accessible because of ring roads and motorways, and so big organisations that demand customers like a retail unit will pay a lot of money for it because they know that people can get there, and so therefore they will have a lot of people to buy their products in this area. So this rural urban fringe is becoming, it's not quite as much as the CBD in terms of value, but it's becoming a slightly a secondary peak, as it says here. The other major reason why land uses are so segregated kind of ties in with the land values, but it's locational needs. What that actually means is that if I am going to have an industry or a retail park, that kind of land use will require similar resources to another industry or another retail park. So similar land uses will require the same resources, the same transport links, the same kind of labour supplies or open space. So where all of those seem to all congregate, then that land use will congregate because all of their locational needs are met. What I mean by this is, if I was going to build any type of industry, most industry will need large space, lots of transport links to be able to get in the products, to be able to, and the raw materials to be able to make the products, and to be able to take the products away, and they'll need labour to be actually make those products. So wherever those things exist is where you'll see lots of industry. So we talk about Sheffield. Sheffield was a place that had lots of steel industries grow in that area because it had good access to energy, it had good access to resources like iron ore and coal, and it had transport links, which means that once those products were sold, they could be distributed quite quickly to other parts of the country. Similarly, if we look at retail, we can see that they need customers, they need access to a labour supply and to a supply of goods. So access is really important for retail. So wherever they have really good access, that is the kind of place that you're going to find retail. So we looked at that CBD, great access, so you find a lot of retail there. On that rural urban fringe where there's increasingly better access because of ring roads and motorways, you're going to see more retail growing up there and clustering together because the locational needs of that land use are being met. Thinking about this idea of land use and land value, this is a picture of Oxford Science Park, and it's on the rural urban fringe in Oxford. My question is, why would it be there? Think about what would the locational needs be of the science park, and also where does it sit in that kind of land value question? What would it be able to afford in terms of bidding for land? But think especially on what it would need location-wise, and therefore why it might be on the rural urban fringe rather than in the CBD or the suburbs or the inner city.